The snowflake hit my windshield like a whisper, soft, innocent, completely unaware. It was about to change everything. Welcome to Quiet History. I'm your host, Adnan. Tonight, we talk about the last train to Winter Falls. I should have known something was off the second my GPS started glitching. 1 minute, I'm cruising down Route 89, heading home for the holidays, and the next, my phone's acting like it's possessed, rerouting me through back roads I've never even heard of. But I'm stubborn as hell, and I figured, hey, shortcuts are shortcuts, right? Wrong. So freaking wrong. The snow started coming down harder, those fat, fluffy flakes that look pretty for about 5 seconds. Before you realize, you can't see jack. My headlights were doing their best impression of lightsabers, cutting through a white wall of nothingness. The radio crackled to static, and my so-called shortcut turned into this winding mountain road that felt like it was going nowhere, fast. Then I saw it, a sign, half buried in snow, barely visible. Winter Falls Station, 2 miles. Now, I'm from Colorado, born and raised. I know these mountains like the back of my hand, and I'm telling you right now, there's no town called Winter Falls, not on any map, not in any guidebook, nowhere. But my gas gauge was flirting with empty. My phone was dead, and honestly, I was desperate enough to check it out. The road curved sharply, and suddenly the trees opened up like curtains revealing a stage, and there it was, this old-school train station, sitting there all pretty, in the middle of absolutely nowhere. We're talking vintage, like something straight out of a black and white movie. The building was this gorgeous deep red, with white trim, and golden light poured from every window. A wooden sign swung gently in the wind. Winter Falls Station, Est 1889. No way, I muttered, pulling into what I guess you'd call a parking lot, really just a cleared patch of snow, with a few other cars already there, all of them buried under at least 6 inches of powder. I grabbed my jacket, thank God I packed my heavy one, and stepped out into the cold. It hit me like a slap. That mountain air, so crisp, it made my lungs ache. My boots crunched through the snow as I made my way to the station entrance, and I swear I could hear music, not modern stuff, but something old-timey, like a jazz band from the 1920s. The door had this ornate brass handle, cold as ice under my glove. I pulled it open, and warmth rushed out to meet me, along with the smell of coffee, cinnamon, and wood smoke. It was like walking into Christmas itself. Inside was, man, how do I even describe it? Imagine if someone took every cozy winter fantasy you ever had and made it real. There were exposed wooden beams overhead, strung with warm Edison bulbs. A massive stone fireplace dominated one wall, fire crackling away like it had been burning for decades. Leather armchairs and sofas were scattered around, occupied by people, in the weirdest mix of clothing I'd ever seen. Some looked normal, dressed like it was 2024, but others, they were wearing stuff from different decades. A woman in a 1940s style dress, a guy in what looked like a 1970s leisure suit, a couple of kids in Victorian-era coats. Welcome to Winter Falls Station. The voice came, smooth as whiskey and warm as that fireplace. I turned to find an older gentleman behind a polished wooden counter. He had silver hair, kind eyes, and was wearing an old-fashioned Stationmaster's uniform, navy blue, with brass buttons that gleamed in the light. I said, feeling seriously out of my depth. Look, I don't mean to be rude, but where the hell am I? My GPS went crazy, and I've never heard of this place before. He smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made you feel like everything was going to be okay, even when nothing made sense. You're exactly where you need to be, he said. Most folks don't find Winterfall Station unless they're looking for it. Even if they don't know they are. Coffee? It's on the house. Before I could answer, he was already pouring from this gorgeous copper pot, and the smell that hit my nose? Heaven. Pure, unadulterated. Heaven. Thanks, I said, taking the mug. It was warm, and I wrapped both hands around it. So, what is this place exactly? Winterfall Station is what you might call a way station, he explained, leaning against the counter. A place between places, between where you've been and where you're going. Between times, too, if we're being honest. Between times. I raised an eyebrow. Okay, am I being punked right now? Where are the cameras? He chuckled. A deep, rich sound. No cameras, son. Just a place that exists outside the normal flow of things. See, ever so often, people find themselves here when they need to. When they're running from something or toward something, or when they just need a moment to breathe and remember what's important. I took a sip of the coffee, and oh man, it was incredible. Like every good cup of coffee I'd ever had, all rolled into one. Perfect moment. The train comes through. Once every hour, he continued, pointing to an old brass clock on the wall. It read, 11:47 p.m. You can catch it if you like. It'll take you where you need to go. Or you can stay here, warm up, think things through. There's no rush. Time works differently here. Where does the train go? I asked. His smile grew wider. That depends on who's riding it. Cryptic much? But honestly, I was too cold, too tired, and too weirded out to argue. I took my coffee and found an empty armchair near the fire, sinking into leather so soft it felt like a cloud. That's when I started noticing the details. Really noticing them. There were photos on the walls, black and white, sepia-toned, color from different eras. People standing in front of this very station, smiling, waving goodbye. Some of the photos looked brand new. Others looked like they were taken 100 years ago. On a small table near me, someone had left a journal open. The entries jumped around. Dated 1952, then 2003, then 1978, then last week. Pretty wild, isn't it? I looked up to find a woman settling into the chair across from me. She looked to be in her 60s, dressed in modern clothes. Jeans, a thick sweater, hiking boots. That's one word for it, I admitted. I'm still trying to figure out if I hit my head in a snowbank and this is all a concussion dream. She laughed, a sound like wind chimes. I thought the same thing when I got here 3 Christmases ago. But it's real, honey, as real as it gets. 3 Christmases ago. I frowned. You've been here for 3 years? Oh no, she said, shaking her head. Time here isn't like time out there. I've been here for about an hour, give or take. But I've visited 3 different Christmases, 1955, 1982, and 2010. Got to see my grandmother when she was young. watch my parents' first Christmas together, and spend one more holiday with my daughter before she moved overseas. My brain was doing somersaults. That's not possible. Honey, you walked into a train station that doesn't exist on any map, where people from different time periods are hanging out by the same fire. I think we're past worrying about what's possible. Fair point. So the train, I said slowly. It's like a time machine, more like a memory machine, she corrected. It takes you to the moments you need to see or back to where you need to be with a fresh perspective. Some folks ride it forward, some backward. Me, I'm heading home after this. Back to my own time, my own life, but better equipped to handle it, you know. The brass clock ticked toward midnight. People started gathering their things, moving toward the platform doors at the far end of the station. I could see the platform through the frosted windows. Wooden boards, covered in snow, old-fashioned lampposts, casting golden light, and in the distance, getting closer, a warm glow, and the faint sound of a whistle. That's our train, the woman said, standing up. You coming? I hesitated. My logical brain was screaming that this was insane, but my gut, that deep, instinctual part that just knows things, was telling me to trust it. Where will it take me? I asked. She smiled. Where do you need to go? That was the million-dollar question, wasn't it? I'd been running myself ragged for months, working overtime, staying busy, avoiding anything that required me to actually feel my feelings. My mom had been on my case about visiting, and I kept making excuses. My best friend from college had reached out 6 times, and I'd barely responded. I was so focused on grinding, on hustling, on getting ahead, that I'd forgotten to actually live. I think, I said slowly, I need to go home. Really? Go home. The woman nodded like she'd heard this 1,000 times before. Then that's where the train will take you. We moved toward the platform with the other travelers. The stationmaster tipped his hat to each person as they passed. When I reached him, he handed me something, a brass ticket stamped with today's date and one word, home. Safe travels, he said, and remember, you can always come back if you need to. The station will be here. How will I find it again? I asked. He winked. You won't have to look. It'll find you. The platform was magical, straight out of a Christmas card. Snow fell gently, the flakes catching the lamplight and sparkling like tiny diamonds. The train pulled in, and it was a beauty. An old steam locomotive, polished to perfection, pulling passenger cars that glowed with warm light from within. The conductor, dressed in a vintage uniform, stood by the steps. All aboard for home station, he called out, his breath puffing white in the cold air. I climbed aboard, finding a seat by the window. The interior was all rich wood paneling, brass fixtures, and velvet seats. It smelled like pine and peppermint. As the train started moving, I watched Winter Falls Station fade into the distance, the golden lights growing smaller until they were swallowed by the snow and darkness. The train picked up speed, and outside the window, things got weird, really weird. I saw landscapes shifting, summer meadows turning to autumn forests, cities growing and shrinking, decades passing in seconds. It was like watching time-lapse footage of the world, beautiful and terrifying all at once. Then, gradually, Things slowed down. The view outside became more familiar. Mountains I recognized, towns I'd driven through, and finally, my own street, my own house lit up with Christmas lights. The train stopped so smoothly, I barely felt it. The conductor appeared beside my seat. "Home station," he announced. "Watch your step." I stood on shaky legs and made my way to the exit. The steps led down, not to a platform, but to my own driveway. My car was there, exactly where I'd parked it, before leaving for that fateful drive. The gas tank, I somehow knew, would be full. "Wait," I called to the conductor. "How is this possible? How am I here?" He smiled, touching the brim of his cap. "You took the train home, sir. That's all there is to it. Merry Christmas." The door closed, and the train began to move. I watched it pull away, its lights twinkling in the night. And then, just like that, it was gone, vanished into the winter air like it had never been there at all. I stood in my driveway for a long moment, snow falling gently around me. Then I pulled out my phone. It had power now, and service. I scrolled to my mom's number and hit call. "Sweetie?" Her voice was warm, surprised. "It's almost 1 in the morning. Are you okay?" "Yeah, Mom," I said, and I meant it. "I'm good, really good. Listen, I know I said I might not make it for Christmas, but I'm gonna be there. I'll leave first thing in the morning, I promise." "Oh, honey, that's wonderful." I could hear the smile in her voice. "I'm so happy to hear that. Drive safe, okay?" "I will." "I love you, Mom." "Love you too, sweetie. Can't wait to see you." I hung up and looked back down the street where the train had disappeared. The snow had already covered any tracks it might have left. But in my pocket, I could feel something hard and round. I pulled it out. The brass ticket, still warm, still stamped with one word: home. I kept that ticket. Still have it. Actually, in my wallet. Some nights, when I'm stressed or overwhelmed or feeling lost, I take it out and hold it. It reminds me that no matter how far I wander, no matter how lost I get, there's always a way home. Sometimes, it's a train that doesn't exist on any map. Sometimes, it's a phone call at 1 in the morning. Sometimes, it's just remembering what matters. I made it to my mom's that Christmas, spent a week there. Actually, called up my old college buddy, too. We grabbed beers and caught up for hours. I started saying yes to things more, started being present, instead of just going through the motions. And you know what's crazy? Sometimes, on winter nights, when the snow's falling just right, I swear I can hear it, that distant whistle, the chug of a steam engine, the sound of a train that runs between moments and memories. I haven't seen Winter Falls Station since that night, but I know it's out there, waiting for the next lost traveler who needs to find their way home. Because that's the thing about home. It's not always a place. Sometimes it's a moment. Sometimes it's a choice. And sometimes, when you're really lucky, it's a mysterious train station in the mountains that reminds you what you've been missing all along. The snow's starting to fall again as I finish telling you this story. And somewhere out there, I like to think the Stationmaster is pouring another cup of coffee. The fire's still crackling in that stone fireplace, and the brass clock is ticking toward the next departure. All aboard for wherever you need to be. Your train's waiting. But here's something I didn't tell you before, something I've never shared with anyone. About 6 months after that night, I was having one of those days. You know the kind. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. My car broke down on the way to work. I got chewed out by my boss over something that wasn't even my fault. Spilled coffee all over my favorite shirt. And then I got a text from my mom, my grandmother, the one who raised me when my parents were working double shifts, had passed away, peacefully, in her sleep, but still, gone. I sat in my car, in the parking lot, just numb. That's when I noticed it, a flake of snow, landing on my windshield. In June, in Colorado, we get weird weather, but snow in June, that's rare. I looked up at the sky, clear blue, not a cloud in sight, but that one snowflake kept landing on my windshield, melting, and then another would appear, and another. I pulled out my wallet and took out the brass ticket. It was warm, actually warm, like it had been sitting by a fire. I closed my eyes, and when I opened them, I knew where I needed to go. I started driving, not toward home, not toward work, just driving, following an instinct, a pull. I couldn't explain. The roads started looking familiar in that weird way, where you're not sure if you've been there before or if you're remembering a dream. And then, there it was, the sign. Winter Falls Station, 2 miles. I pulled into that same parking lot. The station looked exactly the same, like not a single day had passed. Golden light in the windows, the wooden sign, swinging gently. I walked in, and the Stationmaster was there, behind the counter, like he'd been waiting for me. "Welcome back," he said, with that same warm smile. "I knew you'd return. My grandmother," I started, but my voice cracked. He nodded, slowly, knowingly. "She's on the next train," he said softly. "If you'd like to see her one more time." I couldn't speak. I just nodded. He poured me a coffee, and I sat by the fire, waiting. The brass clock ticked toward the hour, and then that familiar whistle echoed through the station. The train pulled in, and this time, when I boarded, the conductor handed me a different ticket. It didn't say home. It said, "Goodbye." I found a seat, and the train started moving. But this time, it didn't go through those wild, time-shifting landscapes. Instead, the world outside the window became soft, warm, golden, like honey, like sunlight, like memory. And then the train stopped at a station I'd never seen before. It was beautiful, made entirely of light, it seemed. And standing on the platform, waiting, was my grandmother. She looked younger, somehow, healthier. She was smiling, that smile I'd grown up with. That made everything okay. I stepped off the train, and she opened her arms. "There you are, sweetheart," she said. And her voice, God, her voice, "I've been waiting for you." We sat on a bench, on that impossible platform, and we talked, for what felt like hours. She told me she was proud of me, that she loved me, that she'd always be with me, in the memories, in the lessons she taught me, that it was okay to let go. "But I'm not ready," I said, tears streaming down my face. "I know, honey," she said, squeezing my hand. "But you don't have to be ready. You just have to know that love doesn't end. It changes form, but it never, ever ends. The conductor called from the train. Last call for home station. My grandmother stood and pulled me into one more hug. Go live your life, sweetheart. Make it beautiful. Make it count. And when you're making it, know that I'm cheering you on from wherever I am. I climbed back onto the train, tears blurring my vision. The train pulled away, and I watched her, standing there, waving, until the light grew so bright I had to close my eyes. When I opened them, I was back in my car, in the parking lot of the station. But the station itself was gone. Just an empty field with wildflowers swaying in the June breeze. No building, no sign, nothing, except on my passenger seat, a single pressed flower, a daisy, my grandmother's favorite. I picked it up and held it to my chest, and I knew, somehow, I knew she was okay, and that I would be, too. That's the real story of Winter Falls Station. It's not just a place that helps you find your way home. It's a place that helps you say the things you need to say, do the things you need to do, and let go of the things you need to release. I still have that brass ticket, and I still have that pressed daisy tucked inside my grandmother's old Bible. Some people might say I imagined it all, that grief does strange things to the mind. And maybe they're right, but I don't think so, because I've learned something in the years since that first snowy night. Magic, real magic, doesn't look like fireworks and spells. It looks like a train station that appears when you're lost, a conversation with someone you thought you'd never see again, a moment where time stops and lets you breathe. And that is the most powerful magic there is. So if you ever find yourself driving through a snowstorm and your GPS starts acting strange, if you see a sign for a place that shouldn't exist, don't be afraid. Pull over, go inside, have a cup of coffee, warm yourself by the fire, and when the train comes, if you need to ride it, because somewhere between where you've been and where you're going, between memory and hope, between yesterday and tomorrow, there's a station waiting, and it's exactly where you need to be. Thank you for listening. This is Adnan from Quiet History. Stay warm out there, and remember, your train is always waiting. You just have to be ready to board it. Good night.